In today's conversation, based on the power of awareness, which I decided to review today, and I titled this mind map, What You Want Wants You, we're going to reflect upon this particular quote, build upon it from Neville's information, and relate it back to some experiences that I would like to share with you to articulate the synchronistic, multidimensional, and ever-evolving results of changing the concept of self. So he says, it is only by change of consciousness, by actually changing your concept of yourself, that you can build more stately mansions, the manifestations of higher and higher concepts. By manifestations is meant experiencing the results of these concepts in your world. Now, so much of my life has been about career entrepreneurship because it's something that I deeply find that is my purpose in life. And a lot of my experiences in all areas of my life tend to unfold around the bridge of incidents relating to concepts of self changes as a result of moving into higher degrees of entrepreneurship. One of the stories that I want to share with you is from 2016. And in this particular time, I decided that it would be best for me to be in Los Angeles for a year. I was involved with consulting with the Abraham Group. Some of you know I did a discussion on Jay Abraham's book, actually, the Mr. X discussion, which was a 3-hour long discussion, one of my longest discussions alongside the discussion with Think and Grow Rich. I'll put both of them links in the description. You can check it out. I had an amazing opportunity to be around the Abraham Group and learn things that I've always wanted to learn about business, marketing, optimization, strategy, in relation to entrepreneurship. And Jay is one of the masters. If you just check out one of his videos, which I'll put a link in the description, you'll see his ability to see different aspects of business, which he calls leverage points or impact points, from many different perspectives based on his experience and working with so many businesses. And I was blessed with the opportunity, so I realized that it was important for me to be down there where the action is. Now, one of the challenges that I faced at that time was, as a Canadian, the kind of visa that I was qualified to enter the U.S. on only allowed me to be there for up to 6 months, and I wasn't able to do any consulting work while I was there. And to add to that, many of the visas that I saw required a university degree. And some of you know that in 2005, I took some university courses on the side, which was actually paid for by the company that I was working in. However, I decided that I was going to not move forward with the business degree, and I left it. Now, not having a business degree, but however, having this burning desire to be in the U.S. and have those experiences and have a lot of fun too, because I like the experiences that I was having every time I would go to Los Angeles. I recognized that some way, somehow, I was going to figure it out. I remember having that feeling of it is done. I also recognized that through my experiences all throughout the journey, the concept of self was changing. You're able to handle rejection a lot better. You're able to deal with complexities a lot better. You have a lot higher of a degree of confidence in relation to certain things that may appear to hold you back, such as this scenario. And because of the reference experience, you'd always find some way, somehow, to make it happen. You believe that some way, somehow, you're going to make it happen again. Now, around that time, I taught a speed reading workshop. Some of you know I've got partnership arrangements with Iris Reading, in which I teach speed reading workshops. And this was going on. We've got a great relationship since 2010. As a matter of fact, now, I mentioned in the last video, I'm in Fort Lauderdale. And one of the reasons why I'm here is to meet with Paul, the founder of Iris Reading, and we're going to have a number of conversations. We're going to hang out, and the way we come up with business deals and put things together is very unstructured and flow-based, let's say, over a couple of drinks, over dinner, going for a walk, doing different things, hanging out. That's how we come up with our best ideas. It's kind of like our way of masterminding. We don't do things in a very formal way, but we come up with great ideas that have produced substantial business for the both of us. And so we've been doing this process or ways of doing things since 2010, and we'll continue to do this. So I taught a workshop, and there was a student in there, and he took the workshop. He enjoyed it. And I had this idea that I wanted to be in Los Angeles. So I started to do some research, and it just so happens to be there was this one visa, and it might not be the only one, but that was the one that I saw. It's called the Management Consultant TN visa. That's one of the visas that does not require university education. However, that visa is one of the most stringent as far as criteria goes in order to be accepted. And I had the experience because I had the management consulting experience all throughout the years of consulting. Plus, I had in corporate, even though I was in IT, I was doing a lot of operational consulting in relation to IT for warehouse management systems for the warehouses. And that was enough to qualify for this particular visa. So I remember buying this TN visa package. It was like $200. It was an ebook or something like that, which taught you how to get all your documents aligned, because the way you would apply for this visa is you would actually book your flight, you would show up at the border, and you would say you're applying for this visa. They would bring you for an interview, and they would either accept it or deny it. And if they denied it, you have to, go back home. So I did all this paperwork, and I was preparing for doing this. And it just so happens to be, synchronistically so, that this visa showed up within awareness. Some way, somehow, things reveal itself. But however, it was tied into the concept of self, because through the experiences, I realized that if I was going to look at all the ways of how I was not going to get there, I probably would not see this opportunity. Now, what ended up happening as well was I had a lease in a place that I was staying in, Toronto. And I didn't want to break the lease because there was a penalty doing it, and as well as there was also this relationship that I had with the real estate agent, and I wanted to maintain the good relationship. But however, if I found somebody who they felt was trustworthy to be there and met a list of criteria, they would be able to take over the place. So one day when I was at the gym, which is just down the street from the condo that I was staying in, I ran into that student who took the workshop, the speed reading workshop, and he remembered me. And we had a conversation, and I said, yeah, I'm actually planning on going to the US, and I need somebody to take over my lease. And he said, I'm actually looking for a place downtown. And it was the exact criteria for what he was looking for. He wanted a high view, and this was on the 58th floor. He wanted a place that was close to Union Station. Some of you from Toronto know Union Station. He obviously wanted to be close to this gym, the Good Life at Union Station, in which I was a member of, and he was there. And it worked out perfectly. And he happened to meet all the qualifications of what they were looking for in order to transfer the lease. So that even worked out. Now, Paul, founder of Iris Reading, wrote an endorsement letter for me because that was one of the requirements. Also, another one of my clients and friends who I met through this YouTube channel, Jeff Moore, maybe he's listening to it, also wrote an endorsement letter for me. And these endorsement letters were coming from high ranks. Paul being the president of his company, Jeff being the president of his company. And then I also got another endorsement letter from, during my IT business days, a president of an IT company, a large IT company in Toronto, who wrote an endorsement letter for me. So synchronistically so, through the journey and bridge of incidents, just as I've been communicating all throughout the videos, and this journey continues, one thing leads to the next. You pick a goal or a vision, you bring it forth, your concept of self changes through the journey of changing how you relate to the different aspects of the journey. And from there, what ends up happening is you bring forth the results and you change. And then, as he states here, by actually changing the concept of self, you can build more stately mansions and manifestations of higher and higher concepts. So you continue this journey of changing the concept of self. And you're also met with, and really when you reflect back on your past experiences and everyone that played a role, the theaters that everyone played, to be there to contribute to the next stage of your journey. All of them, as you can see, synchronistically so. Now, I ended up going to the border, and they pulled me into the room, and they looked over the paperwork, and they approved me. So I was able to get through and actually be there for a year. Now, all of this I would tie into what he would refer to in power of awareness. He says the principle of least action governs everything in physics, from the path of a planet to the path of a pulse of light. Least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. Therefore, in moving from your present state to the state desired, you must use the minimum of energy and take the shortest possible time. This is a way of thinking which, synchronistically so again, Iris teaches speed reading. J. Abraham teaches exponential business growth. Paul and I, including Jeff and I, including David and I, who runs the IT company, had many conversations about producing accelerated business growth. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I enjoy doing when Paul shows up in a handful of hours, I'm recording this video, today's Tuesday, to be released on Sunday, is having stimulating conversations of looking at how to get to the end result quicker, easier, faster by leveraging the resources, the assets, connecting them with the relationships. It's, again, one of those things that, from the business perspective, I learned a lot from Jay's work. And I mentioned I'll put more links in the description to some of his work so you can recognize that it's really this changing of concept of self in relation to the different attributes of the journey, which translates into different thinking, which then reflects back as the experiences in which he relates to least action. And when you recognize that all people from your past play a role to where you are right now, and are some way going to play the role to where you're going to be at the next stage of your journey, then this is how the theater plays out. And what we find is that automatically you're able to see the connects between the relationships, the resources, the assets, and the different parts of the journey in relation to your vision. I would also call this the flow-based way. And it's a matter of changing the perspectives around, paradigm around, and actually integrating what we have learned from the book Acres of Diamonds by Russell Conwell. The idea behind it is right now, wherever you are, you have access to acres of diamonds. And the acres of diamonds is reflected based on the recognition that you are that acres of diamonds within yourself. And from this acres of diamonds within yourself, you recognize that what you want is reflected as all people, circumstance, information, environments, reflecting back as wanting you back, as we reflect back on the story. The individual who took the workshop wanted the place to stay. What I wanted, he wanted as well, and thus wanted me back. Paul, Jeff, and David, who I was involved with in business for many years, wrote the endorsement letters. The Abraham group wanted me in California. They wanted me there. I wanted to be there. My friends in California want to be there as well. And what I want wants me back. This is the thing that we want to further understand to a deeper degree. And this is done by attention. I remember in one of Neville's lectures, he said, man is only limited by weakness of attention and poverty of imagination. So let's reflect upon that in this quote here where he says, attention is forceful in proportion to the narrowness of its focus. That is, when it is obsessed with a single idea or sensation. It is steadied and powerfully focused only by such an adjustment of the mind as permits you to see one thing only. For you steady the attention and increase its power by confining it. The desire which realizes itself is always a desire upon which attention is exclusively concentrated. For an idea is endowed with power only in proportion to the degree of attention fixed on it. Now, this is one of the things that happens on the journey as part of the ever-evolving concept of self. We're able to maintain a light-hearted attention on the vision, and as a result of maintaining a subconscious, unconscious, light-hearted attention on the vision, what we notice is that it's easier to connect the dots. As Steve Jobs had said in his commencement speech, which to me, in the earlier stages of my entrepreneurial journey, I used to listen to over and over again. He spoke about connecting the dots looking backwards. It's very easy to connect the dots looking backwards, as I'm connecting the dots looking backwards with you. However, one of the things we want to do is also recognize that we can connect the dots looking forward by reflecting upon all the times that synchronistically so things had worked out to bring us to where we are right now, and everything is contributing to the goal. This releases us from a lot of reactivity and brings us into the fact that we know some way, somehow, we are going to bring forth our vision. As a result, our attention automatically goes and our awareness automatically focuses on and thus reveals the aspects of the journey to bring forth our vision using the principle of least effort. And he says it very clearly. The principle of least action governs everything in physics from the path of a planet to the path of a pulse of light. Least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. We always say this some way, somehow. And we can connect the dots looking backwards at these experiences. And one of the joys that I have, and Paul and I are going to talk about this because certainly I'm going to bring up that I made a video discussing this, that when we reflect upon these experiences, we encourage them even more. That's why it's important to connect with people, such as I suggested in this video, who see reality from the perspective of least action, connecting the dots, looking at creative and innovative ways to bring forth results, and stepping away from excessive, convoluted, force-based ways. When you allow that information through the conversations to continue to saturate your consciousness, your concept of self changes because you recognize that you could do it even more. And as a result, you understand even more so of how what you want wants you. And through the process, you experience the principle of least action. As he states, least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. Therefore, in moving from your present state to the desired state, you must use the minimum of energy and take the shortest possible time. And one of the ways that we can do this is to go back to what he had said here. It is only by a change of consciousness, by actually changing your concept of self, that you can build more stately mansions, the manifestations of higher and higher concepts. So the key is to focus on changing the concept of self in relation to the people, the environment, the circumstance, the information. And as we change how we relate to these attributes, those attributes change in relationship to us. It changes in relationship from the perspective of spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. This is what we discussed in the last video, which I recommend watching, and we'll continue to discuss this. And this is one of the most important components of his entire philosophy. No one to change but self. So this is what we want to focus on, is the continual changing of how we relate to ourselves. Do you see yourself from a place of confidence? I recommend listening to The Self-Confidence Formula by Napoleon Hill, which in my earlier stages of the journey, I lived by that formula and it helped me tremendously. Because when you have a concept of self based on a high degree of self-confidence, it's easier for you to see the potential pathways to bring forth the vision that are from the perspective of least action that he's referring to. You're also able to form the relationships and form the connections and be able to do things that others might see as impossible or see as extremely challenging. Certainly when I had the opportunity to sit through many discussions and consultations in the presence of J. Abraham, I heard him talk about things and say things that, even though I had a lot of business experience leading up to those conversations, during that time, they seemed like he was moving mountains. But then what I realized is what I had to do is I had to release my biases while listening to him communicate with his clients. And then I started to see the obviousness of his communication. And then I found myself doing many of those things that he was referring to. So when we're in the presence of individuals that seem to have a higher degree of understanding of certain principles and aspects of how reality works, we want to recognize that they are us externalized. What you want wants you. You wanted the conversation, and they wanted to have the conversation with you. And thus we recognize what we had learned from one of the translations from the Emerald Tablets. If the light is within you, then the light from these tablets shall respond. So what we're doing is we're allowing the light to shine brighter from within ourselves by continuously encouraging a more elevated concept of ourself, so that when we look at whatever it is, when we deal with whatever it is, when we connect with people, environment, circumstance, and information, we see it more from the perspective of, and I say this all the time, in harmony and in contribution to your vision. So I trust this story, as well as the synchronistic multidimensional connections between the different aspects in relation to what we've been discussing, in relation to this video, in relation to all the videos, further integrates this understanding as we reflect upon, and we continue to reflect upon, the information provided in this book, Power of Awareness by Neville. Now let's go ahead and conclude this with an affirmation to further instill this. We can say, I realize that change happens within consciousness. By changing my concept of self to who I am truly meant to be, I'm able to experience a flow-based journey to the destination, bring forth a vision, and then move into even higher concept of myself. I recognize that the reflections in reality are a result of these concepts that I've changed within myself. Through the process, I'm able to easily maintain the attention and focus in relation to whatever it is on my journey to realize my vision from the perspective of my ideal concept of self. Through the process, I understand to a deeper degree the principle of least action, which governs everything in physics, from the path of a planet to a path of the pulse of light. As a result, I represent the light. I live in and from the light. And through the process, my desires realize themselves exclusively concentrated based on the degree and attention that's fixed on it via my concept of self. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.